Hello everybody, welcome to a new episode of AZ Security. My name is Dion Paardenkoper, I'm a cloud security architect at IT Impressive, and today I have a special guest, and that is Myron. Myron, can you introduce yourself please?
Yes, thank you, Dinant, for the invite to this video to
You're
AZ
welcome.
Security. My name is Myron Helgering. I'm a technology lead at Pink Elephant, one of the Microsoft partners and MSSPs, and I'm responsible for the products and solutions that we develop for our customers to keep our customers safe. So I'm spending most of my time with technology and making sure we can use it to keep our customers safe, help them with different security challenges. And I'm also a Microsoft MVP on security. Um, like uh, like uh, like Dinant, I'm a security MVP in SIEM XDR and identity and access. But I do a lot of stuff on Microsoft Security. I do a lot in Purview. I do stuff in Intune, stuff in Entra, Defender. I'm doing a lot of different stuff. Yeah.
I think we can better ask what do you do not in Microsoft Security? Great to have you here on the show, Myron. And for the audience, everybody at home, today we're going to talk about protecting your bring your own devices with MAM for Windows. Myron, can you talk us through what do we mean with this?
So yeah, MAM. It's called mobile application management, and mobile application management is a solution within Microsoft Intune that has been around for a long, long time. Mainly used for Android and iOS for a lot of years. I think many companies have adopted mobile application management for both their managed devices and also for their unmanaged devices. And it's a very popular solution to get a little bit more, a little bit more control over your corporate data and applications. You can, for example, make sure that you can put some kind of DLP controls on there to make sure corporate data is not being leaked out of those corporate applications and onto your unmanaged Android or iOS device. You can also, for example, make sure that there's some authentication requirements on there. For example, make sure that you use a PIN or some biometrics to actually open up these corporate applications. And there's all kinds of functionality, stuff like remote wipe, and maybe even more importantly, actually do some compliance checks to know that the device itself is actually safe whenever that user is on that unmanaged device which we have no control over and actually is trying to access your corporate applications and your data. You can do some checks to make sure, hey, this device is deemed worthy to access my tenant and my data, and that's where mobile application management comes in. That's where Microsoft now also built a solution for Windows a couple of years ago. That's what we're going to talk about.
Well, awesome. I can't wait to see all the things that you have prepared for us. So take it away.
All right. Maybe before I share my screen, I'll just expand a little bit on MAM for Windows. In general, available like 3 years ago. I was part of the private preview back then, which I found very interesting as a solution in general. Also because Microsoft also had different solutions already to kind of achieve the same things. I'm not going to be talking about that a lot today, but there are some other solutions, stuff like app enforced restrictions or session policies in Defender for Cloud Apps. We also, a lot of years ago, had something called Windows Information Protection, which is not part of the stack anymore, but there were multiple solutions kind of trying to achieve the same thing also for Windows. And then 3 years ago, they came out with MAM for Windows. And then, in my opinion, it became very silent for about 2 years. Microsoft didn't really do anything with the solution. It wasn't really being actively developed, and I kind of thought it was dying, personally. Um, but then suddenly, like I think about a year ago, a lot of new improvements were being made for the MAM registration, the user experience, some new DLP capabilities. So some new stuff was coming out, and that kind of catched my interest again because before I kind of looked at it as a solution that had a lot of potential, but wasn't really ready for production for my customers. Most of the time I grab different solutions to kind of achieve the same thing. But now that I kind of made a lot of new improvements to the product, I got excited again, start talking about it at conferences, and now also, well, trying to convince many customers to try it out and try to implement it.
Nice.
So yeah, that's a little bit of an introduction. Let's just jump into it.
And do you work with a lot of customers already with this technology?
Not a lot. I have implemented it for 2 customers. For now, with the new improvements, I'm trying to start it back up again because I think it's a really good solution and we can actually take advantage of it. So let's start sharing my screen. There we go. Okay, so we're starting in the Intune portal, and before we're actually going to MAM for Windows here, we're going to tenant administration in the Intune portal. We're going to connectors. Then we're going to mobile threat defense. Because what we're going to do, we're going to connect the mobile threat defense connector, and this will integrate into any Windows security center, which is, well, part of any Windows operating system. And this will integrate to do those compliance checks I talked about that we can also do on Android and iOS. So if we push this connector, whenever a MAM enrollment happens, this connector will make sure we can actually get some information about the security of the device. So connecting this connector is very easy. We click on create and we select the Windows Security Center here. All the other connectors are for Android and iOS. And after we have selected it, we basically just click create. What will then happen, the connector will be here. It will say not set up, but this will say connected once we do our first MAM enrollment. So nothing to worry about. It says not set up. You don't have to do anything. Whenever you do your first enrollment here, everything will be fine. So next up, we're going to create the actual app protection policy here. So in the Intune portal, we'll go to apps, then we'll go to protection. And from here, we're going to create the app protection policy. And here we can select iOS, Android, Windows, or even that old Windows information protection I was talking about. Let's ignore that and use Windows here.
Good idea.
Yeah. So let's give the policy a name here and then select some applications. And this is the first thing I think we have to talk about, because when we're trying to select some applications, the only thing we can actually select is Microsoft Edge here. And that's one of the, well, reasons this solution is not that useful as it could be. MAM has a lot of more potential if we can actually see a lot more applications here that we can protect. Most importantly, the Office suite, OneDrive, a lot of applications that people work with that could be really useful.
Definitely.
Yeah, so at the moment only Edge is relevant. It's only available. So I hope some new applications will be here. But on the other hand, Edge of course is a browser. And what do we do with that browser? Well, we use many different cloud applications. So from there we can actually protect many different cloud applications by selecting the browser. So all is not lost. Let's select Microsoft Edge here. Let's try to protect that application. Next, we can actually configure some DLP controls, some basic DLP controls that, well, a lot of DLP providers or solutions might have. First one is receive data from, and I think this wording could be a little bit better. What it basically means, hey, can Edge receive data from outside sources or not? So I think in this configuration is fine. I don't mind data being pulled into Edge. I'm worried about data being exfiltrated out of that application. So all sources is fine for me here, right?
Right.
Next up is sending the org data to. So now we're actually controlling what type of data can be sent out. So from here, I'm going to select no destinations. I don't want our corporate data to leak out. So I will select no destinations. The next one is allowing cut, copy, and paste. So cut, copy, and paste data out. Here we have multiple options, and we're going to select a new option, which has been recently introduced, which is org data destinations and org data sources. So what that kind of means, instead of it being a full allow or full block, we can basically sit a little bit in between and say, hey, I will allow data to be copy pasted between corporate applications, and I will not allow it to be copy pasted outside. And that will make sure that our users can actually use copy paste actions within those corporate applications, which is really useful. Otherwise, yeah, well, a user would maybe copy paste something in the same document and then it gets blocked, and it would kind of hurt productivity there, right? So
Right.
we're going to select org data destinations and org data sources. And lastly, we can allow or block the printing of data. Let's block that one. Next up, these are the health checks or compliance checks most of the time. We have app conditions and device conditions. So here are some conditions we can configure. There are not a lot of options here. I can think of some. The one that's configured already is the offline grace period. So what will happen if the device is offline? Will the access get blocked, or will the data be wiped? One thing that we could configure, for example, what would happen if the account has been disabled? So we could, for example, say, hey, I want to block access or wipe the data whenever the account is disabled. But more importantly, we can set some device conditions. For example, what is the minimum OS version? Is the device actually up to date? Which OS version would we actually allow here or block? And the thing that we're going to configure today is the max allowed device threat level. I think that's the most important one, because this is the one that will actually integrate into that connector. Because this device threat level that we're going to configure, this is, well, the condition that we set on how much, what device threat level will we actually allow. So what I will do is say, hey, I will allow a medium device threat level. Anything higher, and we will block access. You can configure this however you like. You can do it low, or is the AV in a basic actually securing the device? But I'm going to select medium here, and anything above that risk level will kind of block access for that device. Next up, I'm just going to a security group with a user in there, one user, which will be the one that we'll do a demo for, and we'll actually create the policy here. Just let it run, I guess. Might take a couple of seconds. It gave me well, that was not a problem apparently, but I had the same policy already created here. Let's move on to the next section. We're actually going to create a conditional access policy here to enforce that app protection policy when a user would sign in to a cloud application with an unmanaged device, because that would be the moment of enforcement. That's when we want that MAM registration to happen. So that's where we need a conditional access policy to actually enforce that. So let's create a conditional access policy here. I will use the same security group with the same user for the assignment. So whenever that user will sign in, they will get enforced. Then we can select, hey, which cloud applications are we actually trying to protect? When does this policy need to hit? When will we actually require those users to do the MAM enrollment? I will select Office 365, which is basically a bundle of different Office 365 applications, which includes SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, Exchange Online. Next up, we're going to set some conditions here. So I'll configure the device platform first, and we're going to select Windows here because we're just going to configure this for Windows. And next up, client applications, because we're just protecting Edge in the browser. We will select the browser here. And lastly, we will grant access, and we will require the app protection policy here. That's the one we need to actually require the MAM enrollment. Whenever a user would then sign into one of the cloud applications, it would say, hey, we will require an app protection policy for you to actually get access to that cloud application.
Myron, one question.
Yeah.
So you're selecting the policy, but you don't select the specific policy of itself. Does it already know that you select the policy which you have created yet?
Yeah, it will just create the requirement for the app protection policy to take in effect. So what you actually need to do is make sure that app protection policy is assigned to the same users for which the conditional access policy has been assigned to. Otherwise, you would have a problem. For example, if you would include a user in a conditional access policy and there is no app protection policy for that user will be blocked. It will not be allowed in because there's no app protection policy for that user. So that is important. Yeah.
So to wrap it up, the policy is connected to a specific security group in which you're mentioning it now in your conditional access.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So we're going to create that conditional access policy. And that will be the most important thing to do here. But I am going to show some new stuff. And for this, I'm going to the Microsoft 365 Admin Center because recently Microsoft introduced the Microsoft Unified Edge for Business portal, which is part of the Microsoft 365 Admin Center here. And if we go to settings, you can click on Microsoft Edge here. And what Microsoft did is basically build one unified portal to make sure we can push configurations to all different operating systems, but also for both managed and unmanaged devices, which is really interesting because that would mean that we can basically also do configurations for those unmanaged devices that are signing into Edge because we're doing a MAM enrollment. So that's why I'm going here, because there are some very interesting features that work together with MAM for Windows here. So if we go to configuration policies here, create a policy, you can see different platforms. We can even create a policy from Intune, which would be maybe the normal way for a lot of people to create policies for Microsoft Edge. I am gonna create the cloud policy. Oh, and from here you can select a lot of configurations. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna skip it, and I'm gonna skip the next one as well. I am gonna do some assignments. I'm gonna include the same security group here. Next up, we're going to review and create. Because why I am doing this is if we go back into that policy, we suddenly have something called customization settings here. And we get a whole different list of features that we can configure. Also, the security settings. If we scroll down a little bit, we see a lot of new preview features here, which are really interesting. One of them that we're going to configure is that we can configure is watermarking protection, right? So we can enable watermarking protection, and that will make sure that whenever a user would be in a session that is that has sensitive information or is in a protected Edge for Business browser, you would actually put a watermark on there. What we can also do is enable screen capture protection, which is also interesting. If we enable that, we can actually restrict screenshots, we can restrict recordings to actually put some extra DLP controls on there that we couldn't configure with those app protection policies. And lastly, we could also configure protected downloads here. And protected downloads is basically a way to, instead of restricting the downloading of files, what would then happen is if we would configure that, it would actually save that file in a OneDrive instead of exfiltrating it to the unmanaged device. it would still be allowed to download the file, but then it would just get saved in that cloud storage in that OneDrive. Yeah. So
Right.
also an interesting setting here that we can configure. So that is the configuration. I'm now going to share and go into the user experience here to see what will actually happen once we configure all those. Let's go. And within the demo, just to highlight what we just configured, we configured that mobile threat defense connector to actually integrate into any Windows Security Center to do those compliance checks, especially the threat level that we want to know about. Then we have the app protection policy where we actually configure both compliance checks and the DLP controls that we want to set in place. We have a conditional access policy to actually enforce that app protection policy whenever a user would sign into a corporate cloud application. And optionally, we can also make use of those new preview features with the Edge for Business policy. For this demo, I didn't include those features. You could also configure them. So let's go into the demo here. I'm gonna sign in to an unmanaged device, personal device. And the first thing that the user will do is, well, this is a personal device, so I can do anything I want with it because I'm a local admin. It's my device. So let's just turn off real-time protection, because why not, right? We can just do that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
You've got the power.
Yeah, we can do that as a user, right? So let's make this device unsafe. No problem. So next up, well, you can see here in the Edge browser, we're actually signed into Edge with our Hotmail address. We are not signed in with our corporate email address because why not? We are actually on our own personal device, which we might also use for work. So yeah, let's now sign into our corporate email address. And from here, you will actually see, hey, you're not allowed in. You actually need to sign in to your corporate address and create that second profile, that Edge for Business profile that we can actually protect with MAM for Windows here. So you have to sign in again. And then we get this prompt. And I kind of want to pause here a little bit and see what's actually being asked here, right? It says, allow your organization to manage your device. So what if a user would actually, well, go through this process? We have actually put this policy on here, and it would say, allow your organization to manage your device. And then the blue button says yes. So what will the user do? It will probably click on yes, right?
Yeah.
Or well, the risk of them not reading it and actually clicking yes is fairly high because the user might think, well, I think that's required, so let's just click yes. So that's not really a good user experience here. And what I wanted to take a look at is, hey, Microsoft did something new here, because the old experience looked like this. This was the old experience. It had a little button which was already selected, allow my organization to manage my device. And the only thing that the user had to do was click on OK. And that MAM registration would completely fail because it would try to actually manage their device, and it would fail. So everything we're trying to achieve failed, right? So what we kind of had to do was dive back into Intune and make sure we actually, make sure that those personally owned devices are not being managed. So what we can do with enrollment restrictions in Intune is actually block those personally owned devices from being enrolled and making sure only corporate devices are being enrolled into Intune. So what you can do here is actually block those devices and making sure that those users will not manage their device, and so that MAM for Windows part is completely screwing up what we're trying to achieve here. So what will happen if we do that? Well, then the user will receive an error because it cannot actually enroll that device because we have just blocked it, and then the user will probably call the service desk, right? It will say, hey, I don't know what to do anymore. Your policies blocked me, help. So
Panic.
yeah, so Microsoft built a new user experience here, as we just saw. Now it looks like this. it still says, well, with the blue button, yes, and hopefully the user will click no. But that will not always happen. Let's pretend it will say yes. Then it would say, hey, device management could not be enabled. User would click on OK. And then it would basically give another message and it would say, hey, you can click this blue button and retry again, which is still not really good for the user. I think a lot of users will get stuck. I really don't like this user experience at all. But now Microsoft introduced something completely new. If we go into Intune and we go to device enrollment here, we can actually disable MDM enrollment when adding work or school accounts on Windows. There we go. So if we actually disable this, that prompt will never be shown to the user and it will actually continue and the MAM registration will succeed, which was our goal from the start. So that is a lot better and I can definitely recommend to configure this. So let's continue with the demo. Let's pretend the user clicks no because it knows what to do, or you configured the new setting, right? Now it will register our device. It does a simple Entra ID registration, not a join. And now it does the MAM enrollment. But what will happen? It will see, hey, your device failed to meet the security level because we completely disabled our antivirus. And it sees that we have a high level device risk. So it won't allow us back in to that cloud application. So what we now need to do is actually fix that and make sure we actually have a safe device, an up-to-date device that doesn't fail those compliance checks that we put in place. And then on average, it takes about 10 seconds. You can click on recheck or try to sign in again as a user after you have fixed the issue. And after some seconds, we will click on recheck again and we will actually be allowed in. There we go. Now the actual MAM enrollment can succeed and we're allowed into our cloud application. So from here, let's go to one of the applications where we are trying to protect some data and try to see if those DLP controls that we put in place work as expected. So let's go to one of the SharePoint sites and open one of our test documents and just start playing a little bit with it. So here we have a very simple test document. Let's see what happens. Let's try to create a copy here. Let's just try to download this file here and we'll actually be prevented. Our organization prevents you from downloading the file. We're not allowed to actually download it outright. Next up, let's try to print out this document, see if that works. Print. No, that DLP control also works. We can actually not, well, we're not allowed to print. Now let's try a copy paste action. Copy paste action from our protected cloud application to Notepad. And then we actually can see, hey, you are trying to copy from a protected location and pasting here isn't permitted by your organization. But if we try to copy paste into the same file or within a application, you can actually see, hey, I can copy paste this completely fine within the document or even within other cloud applications that we're trying to protect. That is not a problem. And to actually bring it home a little bit, let's go to a cloud application within Edge that we're not trying to protect. Let's just go to a random blog from my website and try to copy paste some data out of there. So if we copy paste this into our cloud application, we can actually copy paste this without problems. But if we try to copy paste it out of our Edge application, we are still not allowed to actually copy paste it out of there, even though that website is not a protected cloud application. So that's something to know. We're still protecting the application here. And as you can see, this will not work. Well, the user can still go to that website from their personal browser, of course, but we're protecting the application here. So those restrictions will be in place and we're not allowed to exfiltrate that data out of there.
Sounds like a second use case.
Yeah.
Another one.
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah. Yeah. So
Cool.
that was both the configuration and a bit of the user experience. There's some other stuff you can do, troubleshooting. You can even do remote wipe if you want. It will still work. I can actually show it. I will just go back to the configuration. There we go. I'll go back into the Intune portal. And from here, we can go to App Selective Wipe, do a wipe request, select a user, then go to that user, select him, and then we can see a lot of different variations of the same device that I have enrolled over time. And I can actually select one or multiple, and I can create a wipe request here to do an actual selective wipe here. Well, there's not a lot of data to actually delete, but what it will basically do is just delete that browser profile that's on the computer, and that's it. Just the cookies, the favorites, all the stuff that you would regularly find in that profile. I think this could be really useful in the future if we allow different applications to be protected besides Edge. But at the moment, it's just this. I would love for it to, for example, work with OneDrive. Maybe we could actually synchronize corporate data onto that device with MAM for Windows and then do the wipe request, for example. Could be interesting. I can think of a lot of different variations.
Definitely. And do you know if there is a roadmap which is shared publicly?
The normal Microsoft 365 roadmap will include new stuff on there. I haven't seen anything on the roadmap right now that is of interest, but I hope for some new things on the roadmap soon. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. And if I'm recapping our session to a one-liner, what would that be for you?
I think this is the one security solution in the Microsoft stack that will not only protect data from leaking to unmanaged devices, but we can actually do a lot more than that. We can actually make sure that devices are safe whenever they access our information. I think for that reason, this should be the go-to solution for bring your own or unmanaged devices, especially for Windows. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I think we have a clear picture of what this functionality can deliver for us. Myron, I love the presentation, also straight into demo, which I very like. I want to thank you very much for your time and for your explanation.
No problem. Thank you for the invite. I love
Yeah,
sharing
of course.
what I know.
Of course. And if you have a great topic, well, we are looking forward to have you back on the show.
Oh, I would love to. Many topics I would like to talk about.
All
No
right.
problem.
Awesome. Awesome. For everybody at home, I want to thank you very much for listening, for watching. If you have any things or thoughts, please leave them below in the comments. And for otherwise, take care until next time.